Thanks everyone for showing up on Friday evening, and David for your thoughtful remarks. What I thought I'll do is build on what David spoke about and see how are we seeing AI when we look at enterprises in India and beyond, and what are the challenges and bottlenecks which companies are facing. I think to start with, this is 1900 Fifth Avenue in New York. And if you see the street, like it's lined up with horse carriage rides. And that is how the main mode of transport was. And there were many challenges with it, right? At that point in time, if we were to go and maybe ask people, what else would you want to do? Maybe the answer is like what Henry Ford said, like get us better, faster horses. But at that point in time, like a big change happened around that period of time. Any guesses on what happened around this time, which really would make a transformative change in how people will commute in New York? Cars, motorcars, that's correct. And we step forward 13 years, and this is what Fifth Avenue looked like, right? So in the first one, you can hardly spot a motorcar. In the 1931, you can hardly spot a horse. And I think it's important for people in this room to think about, will we be the first motorcar or the last horse in the AI game, right? Because one way or the other, this change is happening. Everyone will come to play. Like it's about how do we adapt and how do we move on that journey and move forward. The good thing is the aspiration within India is really, really high. So we do this survey across a range of senior leaders, and we see Indian firms talking about AI as their top priority at CXOs is actually 5 percentage points higher. The adoption in the youth is also much higher. The openness is more. The risk seen with it in terms of causing job losses, etc., is significantly lesser. So I think this overall, I would say, imperative on taking this forward is really high. But if we think about agentic AI and how that fits into the journey, I think that is where the real unlock will happen. Maybe zooming out a bit, when we think about, and AI has been the buzzword, but it's been around for quite some time. Like the first papers on that would have come like maybe 50 odd years ago. But if you think of the full journey, it started from very simple rule-based analytics, right? And all of us would have done it in, our earlier years, where you'll basically define if, then else, right? And then it moved to machine learning and then to deep learning. And then like around 22 is when generative AI started coming in, the entire LLM encoder, decoder, which for the first time gave the sense that English is the language by which we can code. It allowed AI to do things which we would not assume a machine will do, which is like creativity, conversation, and so on. But the real big unlock, which is the focus for today, is the agents part, right? Which is where some of the limitations of generative AI or LLM kind of get addressed with some of these agents coming into play, right? Because what it does is it actually works off some of the weaknesses. While LLMs are fantastic, like 6 years back, if someone would have said, this is what technology can do, we'd be so impressed. But at the same point in time, the ability to do optimization or to operate in real world setting is really difficult for a traditional generative AI model. And that is where we see agents coming in and doing a lot more in terms of either collaborating very well with what you will call traditional AI, in terms of traditional algorithms, ability to do what you will call like more analytics-based solve, and at the same time also drive action out of it, which is like some of the examples which David also spoke about in terms of conversation, chatbots, and so on. So really, that is where we believe like a lot of augmentation of, human capital will happen. When we think about, Indian CEOs, and when we talk to them about what is like the key insights which they are seeing or key imperatives they are seeing, this is the journey which their companies have taken on this topic, right? One, there is clear understanding and expectation that the change will happen at a really rapid pace. And the velocity is really, really high. So what can be done to both ensure that it does get done well, and it's also something which drives change across levels is important. Second, there is the patience which people have for when will this lead to impact is also coming down. The expectation is, why should it take X time? Why can't it be done sooner? Why can't it be done faster? Why can't I automate things, more quickly? At the same time, there's realization of the challenge in terms of data, talent, and what is that I need to do. So am I ready? is my structure in the right place? Is my team ready to do this? Fourth, the cognitive capability that we spoke about earlier, like that really unlocks a set of use cases which earlier you would not think. Like, for example, exposing your customer to a non-human who's not fully trained. It seems so risky for a business, but that's something with the capabilities which has now happened and is hence, something which people are very excited about. And then fifth, very importantly, like understanding and thinking of this as a way to really drive higher productivity in the organization rather than like planning for obsolescence. This is a very India-focused view. The fifth part I've done these sessions and I've heard my colleagues from the Western part of and their thinking is a lot about using this for cost optimization. At least in India, the conversation is a lot more about how can it improve NPS? How can I get done better work from my people? How do I use this to get the most out of my people and their potential? Important page, it basically shows how people are thinking about and how optimistic they are about AI and AI agents. And like moving into 25, this was done about 6-8 months back. I'm sure the numbers will be even higher. But overall, India, again, 5 percentage points more optimistic about what AI agents can do and the role they can play going forward. There are few countries which are, more positive than us, but we are above the global average. Now, like all of that sounds great, but like if you see on ground what is happening, we like internally call it like AI POC hell. There's so much POC and so little scale, right? So, and here you see is basically companies kind of mapped out, and we have broken them into 4 buckets on the basis of the survey results and their self-reported numbers, right? And a large part of them, like 25% actually fall in AI nascent. These are companies that are trying experiments in terms of what can AI do for us. A big bunch is in AI emerging. Now, these are where they have done AI POCs, like specific problems have been taken, areas which have been explored, and then in those functions, it has been done. But it is solving a part of the function. It's basically saying, okay, I don't want to write the agency brief, like I'll put AI system to do that for me. I don't want to take meeting notes, I'll put that there. But like it's very simple interventions in specific parts of the process in a function. Right? Then there are AI scaling, which have looked at and scaled AI solutions. These are the ones which have like taken a very focused approach, and we'll talk about that. And then there are AI future build, which have basically said, okay, you know what, end-to-end, multiple function, fully transformed, and driving value from it. You will see the percentages. The companies in the 4th bucket are relatively few, and many of the companies right now are feeling and like kind of in the first or in the 2nd bucket. And the 2nd bucket is where the questions start coming saying, oh, we invested, oh, we tried this, the cost was significantly higher, the compute was not making sense, the latency is too high, or we are not getting the kind of impact that we wanted. And hence that POC never scaled. So it's great to tell in the first few meetings that it's working well, but like when you think about scale and impact, that's not coming. Now, when we see how companies in different setups which have done this, and again, like looking at the same, categorization, there's a lot more capacity which people have been able to unlock, and this is more specifically looking at AI agents. So the bottom 2 categories, you'll say operate around 15 to 18% is their expected gain in terms of productivity, which they've been able to unlock. Now, what do they do differently, right? So we try to go a level deeper to understand what is that they're doing differently. So 2 things, right? One, significantly higher focus in terms of what they will do in AI, right? So do you do multiple pilots or do you do a few, but then you really go down deep into this and try to make that wider, becomes, really critical success factor in terms of whether it works well or not. The other important angle to think about, and this is, a framework which we use globally, is think of every agentic AI intervention that we are doing in one of the 3 buckets, right? The first bucket is deploy, where you basically say this is basic operational efficiency or ability for people to be more productive. In my mind, I would think of it in 2 ways. I would think of it as issuing people laptops. Like I know 20 years back, maybe companies were thinking, should all the employees have a laptop or not? You will give a laptop to everyone. That is what the first category will be. Whether you want it or not, it will happen, right? And that will basically, the way to do this in organizations is to think about this removing the 5 ugliest hours of your day. what is that you're doing which you don't like? How can AI do this for you? Basic data management or, your productivity enhancement, meeting notes, co-pilot equivalent, which can free up your time to do things better. But this is almost deploy in your day-to-day general efficiency generation. Almost all of us will be doing it or are already doing it. I think the biggest value right now, and 85% of the places where BCG is working with clients sits in the second bucket, is Reshape, which is basically saying you take a function and then think about how the function will look end to end using AI at its core. And what I mean by that is you take marketing, you take customer service, but you don't say that, okay, this is one specific intervention that I will do, but you really redefine the full landscape of saying, okay, if the marketing function was to be created from zero today, white sheet, and we were to draw out, will you do the same thing that we are doing now? Because a lot of the times we are trying to force fit what an AI tool or AI agentic AI solution or a particular solve can do, rather than really building this function around it. This, of course, like the places where this is working well, customer service, marketing, supply chain, HR, procurement, these are the places where we're seeing a lot of this happen. And then the third is basically saying, how can I use AI to create new profit pools or new revenue pools for us? And this is where you completely unlock and create new business models, new way to serve the market. And this is where you get into that AI future. The fluent organizations, the one who have done this really, really well, will fall there. My experience is, like, at least in India, a lot more value can be created by focusing on the second bucket and doing majority of our work there. But of course, there's option to do the third one as well. The other important part is, like, when you think about AI and think about what are the places where agents can come in and what kind of value they can generate, you will see reshaping processes, and that reinventing workflows is something which is reported as something with very, very high potential. So it's kind of understood, but you will see that how that also changes when you go from early stage AI companies to the late stage AI companies. Now, like, the other important thing is the functions that we spoke about and how those vary. Like, what you see on the right hand side is actually within a sector, which kind of functions are seeing higher AI based reimagination potential and adoption. And you will see it changes, but doesn't change a lot, right? Between a bank versus a telco versus others. And you'll see customer service, customer relationship, marketing, etc. continue to feature on top. At the same time, many companies have already started deploying agents as well. So there's enough, like, you will see, like, only about 7% are completely out of the AI agent exploration, but almost all have at least started exploring or trying things out. And they are using this as a way to get into core functions and really think about what it can look at in the future. The one example, maybe a couple of minutes, and this is an Asian bank which has been on this journey for some time. Here, what they did was they actually launched a co-pilot for their wealth management employees, right? For their in terms of how do you drive better conversations, more informed discussions, and build that trusted partner relationship. This was, like, without getting into the detailed technical part of it, but leveraging a bunch of different solutions coming together, building, like, multiple agents who can coordinate and give this information at the right time. And we saw real delta impact of this getting done. And now this has actually been scaled across a couple of the countries in which this Asian bank exists. I think the important part here was to understand, and when you see the numbers, like, this is not a few delta percentage points improvement. The aspiration and the achievement has been on multifold, almost like doubling, tripling in terms of the efficiency. And you will see the impact is not just about more meaningful conversations, better conversion, but also better customer, like what you'll call NPS, because of lower errors and lesser time being spent doing things which are not the highest value. So it creates more happiness in employees, it's better conversation with the customers, it's better conversion, and it's higher NPS as well. So done well, like, it potentially can create a far higher metric movement. And the aspiration for us should also not be, even 10-15% isn't maybe good enough. Maybe there can be more, which can happen when you redesign things fully. Now, like, as the day goes and you are thinking about things, I think there are 5 important imperatives to, kind of think about. One, which is the area, which is the function where AI and AI agents in specific can create most value for us. Second, if, that is there, how will we fund the journey? I think it's important to think about the excitement phase, I guess, is done, where it was a very new shiny toy and people wanted to just try it out. Now I think it becomes very real. So what do we do which can unlock value right away and create that first, I would say, almost fund the journey imperative for the organizations to take this forward? Third, what is that we need to do in the tech infrastructure so that it can get done? I think in BCG, we always say it's very important not just to think about the front part, which of course all of us do, but it's very important to get the background in place as well. And that, while, is hidden, it's actually significantly critical. So what else needs to happen becomes very important. Fourth is perhaps the most important part, which is how do you manage change better? I think if you think about any such transformation, the way I would say one should do it is think of it in 10, 20, and 70. 10 is basically your data and algorithms. 20 is, the part about what is needed to get the data in the right place, the infrastructure, etc. 70 is actually the people and process part of it. The number of times we have seen things not work or succeed with the workforce not being ready or the change not being thought through or what is the implication it will have not getting done is significant. So hence that becomes very important. And then finally, AI comes with its own sets of biases. So how do we make it responsible and get things done in the right way becomes critical as well. General approach of, kind of doing this is, it's strategy, it's also scaling, but at the same time, it also needs to come about the change management part of it. So the first part is about figuring out what we want to do, which function, which places will the agentic AI go in, what is the kind of things that will get done, and how do we prioritize speed of execution. This isn't, the linear way of doing things. Do it, it doesn't work, change. Then there are other important parts to think about, which is, do we build it? Do we buy it? Do we rent it? I think it's important as a decision parameter to decide. It takes like a significantly different lens if you have to build it in-house. Because if you want it to be competitive advantage, you don't want it to be rented. But at the same time, in some other places, there's a already at-scale solution. There's no point of building it from scratch. And then the entire part about how do you redesign the entire technology part, the foundational layer, so that this works on it. And then the third, which you see at the bottom, which is how do you manage change well? How do we ensure that it is done in a way that the organization is asking for it and absorbs it and thinks of this as a way which is helping them succeed rather than a way which either creates risks or is something which they see as more of a burden than really helping them. So how do we really do that, and not just at the folks at the level where, say, a shop floor or the sales executive, but also at the top for the leadership to really get comfortable with it becomes equally important as well. So that's what I had. I'll just leave you with, last page. I think while there's so much which we have spoken about, there is no, I would say, a blue book of success. It's maybe too early and it's maybe too varied for each of the organizations. So I'll just leave you with this thought, which is, as we go about this, there is, like, all of us have to reinvent, but hopefully there are some, things from this and from the sessions later, which we can take in terms of how we design the playbook for us going forward. So that's what I had. Thank you so much for your time and look forward to